I pushed open the ranch gate, with dirt still on my hands, and almost tripped over a small boy lying just outside. He was all scraped up, clothes dusty, breathing short like he'd fought to make it there. Instinctively, I looked toward the empty road, expecting to see some sign that someone had brought him back. There was nothing. "Hey, listen to me. I'm going to lift you up slowly," I said, crouching and sliding his arm over my shoulder. The boy let out a low groan, pressed his forehead against me, and let his weight go. "Does it hurt?" I asked. He nodded with his chin, trying to be tough, like he was holding his voice in so he wouldn't cry in front of me. I took him to the kitchen, sat him on a chair, grabbed a bowl of warm water and a clean cloth. My hands were shaking, and I held my breath so I wouldn't let the panic show. "It's going to sting a little, okay?" I warned. I dampened the cloth, dabbed at the cuts, cleared away the dirt, changed the water twice, trying to keep my voice steady. The boy bit his lip, but didn't complain. There was something very heavy there. "Tell me, what's your name and what happened?" I asked, needing to understand. "My name's Dean. My mom, Ikaili, she left me back there on the road," he said, and the words just hung in the air, too heavy for a kid his age. I drew a long breath, trying to hold back the indignation burning up through me. "She left you alone like that?" I asked, not believing what I was hearing. "She and my stepdad, Aaron, said we were going on a family trip," he answered, fidgeting with his hands in his lap, nervous. "And then what?" I asked, trying to put the pieces together. But when it was time to go, my twin brother Christopher wasn't coming. I asked if he wasn't going. Nobody answered. My mom stared straight ahead. "Aaron acted like he didn't hear," he said, staring at the table like there was a hole in it. "And after that," I said, blotting another scrape with the cloth, feeling my stomach clench. "On the way, Aaron stopped the pickup. He yanked me by the arm, pulled me outside and dumped me on that gravel road. I fell, scraped my arm and my knee. The truck started up again and left. I just kept listening to the sound fade," he said, like he was seeing it again. My whole body flushed hot with anger, but I breathed low so I wouldn't shake his calm. "Do you remember where it was?" I asked, knowing it was unfair to put that on someone who'd just survived. "I don't. I got up and started walking. There was a fence and a gate. I was tired. I stopped there to rest." "Then you found me," he said, embarrassed. "We need to go to the police station right now," I said, almost on autopilot, because it sounded like the right thing. "No, Aaron's a politician. He's friends with a lot of cops," he whispered so fast it caught me off guard. I looked at that exhausted face and understood that dropping the boy on a precinct counter could mean handing him right back to the people who dumped him in the street. "Okay, we'll find another way," I said, surprising myself at how certain my voice suddenly was. "So, what do we do?" he asked, looking at me like he was gripping a thin rope. "Is there someone who can help? Someone you trust?" I asked, wrapping some ice in a cloth and pressing it gently to his knee. "My dad. His name's Spencer. He had custody of me and my brother until he got sick," he said without thinking, like he kept repeating something he was still trying to understand. The name spun in my head and lit up a memory from somewhere. "That name, your dad's—" "I think I've heard it," I said, like the floor was clicking into place. "He's got land." "People know who he is," Dean confirmed, eyes tired. "Then we'll figure out where he is later. Right now you're going to eat something and lie down." "I'll handle the rest," I said, steady again, taking the wheel. "If I fall asleep, you won't leave me alone, right?" he asked softly, and it cut right through me. "I won't, I promise," I answered, moving the chair closer to stay by him. Later, after feeding him soup, I went to the living room, grabbed my phone, and searched for his father's name. The face popped up easily. I read enough to understand who he was, a major agricultural producer in the region, known for it. That's where I knew him from. I went back to the bedroom, and he still had his eyes open. "I found your dad," He's who I thought he was, big in farming. I recognized him right away, I said, sitting on the edge of the bed. So you know him, Dean said, like he needed anything steady to hold on to. I wrote down his address. Tomorrow morning I'll take you there, I said, raising my notebook. The next morning I got the car ready, put a bottle of water in it, a folded blanket on the back seat, and told Dean to sit up front beside me. After a few hours on the road, we pulled up to Spencer's gate and a little window slid open on the guard booth. A security guard sized me up and then locked onto the boy's face. The kid belongs here. I know him. You can go in, the guard said, recognizing him. He pressed a button and the gate opened with a sound that felt like relief. Inside they had us wait in a big room. Spencer came in with slow steps and a worn look that didn't match the strength of his name. "Who are you? What happened?" he asked, and the moment I heard his voice, I knew I'd been right to bring his son here. I explained exactly what had happened, not hiding anything, and saw his expression shift with every word, first disbelief, then pain, and finally a stunned silence that said more than any answer. "This can't be true. Come here, son," he said, reaching his hand out to the boy as he spoke. Dean stepped over and they touched in a quick, contained gesture, as if another person's presence demanded extra strength. "Thank you for bringing him here." "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't," Spencer said, voice hoarse, trying to keep his composure but with eyes glassy with tears. While he thanked me, I noticed a woman standing in the back. Her eyes were pinned on us with a focus that wasn't curiosity, it was calculation. From the uniform, I knew she had to be the nurse caring for Spencer. When I sensed her stare and looked back, she glanced away and disappeared down a hallway. I turned my attention to the conversation again. "You don't have to thank me. I just did what was right. But we still need to go to the police and report the abandonment," I said, wanting to make noise about it. "We can't report it. Aaron interferes all the time. If you show up there with only your word, everything slips to their side," Spencer said with a tired firmness. "So what should we do?" I asked, biting down on my frustration. "We need information. I know Kylie. We were married for years. She wouldn't do this for no reason. There has to be a motive for abandoning him, and that's what we have to uncover," he said, pain and strategy walking together in his voice. "And how do we do that?" I asked, trying to understand the next step without putting the boy at risk. "The best thing is for Dean to stay with you at the ranch for a while. It's safer there. I'll send 2 security guards to reinforce the gate," Spencer answered, firm despite the fatigue. I left with the boy at my side and with the suspicion planted by the nurse's stare. Spencer's security car followed behind mine, and I felt the weight of the world rearranging itself. The fear came with it, but it wasn't bigger than my decision. That night, back at the ranch, 2 cars pulled up at the gate, high beams on, doors popping open in a hurry. From the first car stepped a man and a woman, neat and cold, like they were walking into a meeting. From the second, 2 men in suits got out, scanning everything. "That's my mom and my stepdad," Dean said quietly, voice shaking the way it does when you recognize danger even before someone says the name. My stomach turned to ice. I looked at the gate and understood the threat was right there on the other side of my fence. "We're here to get the boy," Kylie said, straight to the point, like she was asking for a package. "He's safe, and he's not going with you." "He told me what happened," I answered, heart pounding in my throat but not stepping back. "If you don't cooperate, I'll call the police and have you arrested for kidnapping," Kylie said, cold as a threat. "He doesn't want to go with you. He's afraid you'll abandon him again," I said, voice steady. "You don't get to decide and you'll end up answering for this," one of the suited men said, stepping forward a little. Spencer's guards planted themselves in front of me, unflinching. "Nobody lays a hand on the boy," one warned, voice low and ready. The man in the suit tried to shove his way in and was pinned in seconds, arm locked, forehead pushed against the car window. The other one backed off, realizing this wouldn't be simple. Aaron clenched his jaw and looked at me like he wanted to mark an X on my face. "This isn't over," he growled, yanking the door open with controlled anger. Kylie shot back a hollow look, got into the car, and both vehicles left with a bad promise trailing behind them. As soon as they were gone, I went inside, locked the door, and punched in Spencer's number with fingers that were still shaking. They were here. They tried to take the boy, tried to use force. They didn't get him, I said the moment he answered. "What worries me most is how they found out so fast," Spencer asked, and the silence after landed heavy as lead. "Your nurse heard our conversation. She stood there watching us like a hawk. When I stared back, she slipped down the hallway," I said, and it felt like opening a window I didn't want to open. "Scarlett? You think she's involved? Either way, they won't give up. I'll start digging for information. Don't open that gate for anyone," he said, voice now lower, tense. In the days that followed, the ranch went into alert mode. The guards set up a routine, checked locks, tested the exterior lights. Dean stayed close to me all the time, asking about his brother whenever the house got too quiet. "I miss Christopher. He doesn't think things through, he just goes. He needs someone by his side," he'd say, chewing the rim of his mug. "It's going to be okay," I'd answer, just making sure he knew he could talk. The phone rang on an afternoon with a motionless sky. "I've got information. I'm coming to the ranch," Spencer said. "Are you sure you can make the trip? Won't your illness be a problem?" I asked, because his breathing sounded like it had 2 layers. "I can do it. I need to look you in the eye," he said, cutting off my concern. He arrived pale and worn out, sat at the kitchen table like he needed something solid. I talked to some friends and found a link between Aaron and the doctor handling my treatment. "His name is Malcolm. He's the one who recommended Scarlett," he began, straight to the point. "You're telling me those two are in on it with him?" I asked, and the question hurt because the answer I feared already felt obvious. In the past few months, I've felt weaker and weaker, like I'm wasting away. I thought it was just the illness, but I'm not so sure anymore. With too much time to think, I connected the dots, he said, staring at the wood grain in the table like something was written there. "What dots?" I pressed, because I needed to swallow this in steps. "Dean's brother, Christopher, is naive, easy to manipulate. If Dean disappears and I die, the entire inheritance goes to Christopher. Exactly what Kylie and Aaron want. They get everything by controlling the boy who's left," Spencer said, and the way he said the name was full of care, not accusation. "You think Scarlett and Malcolm are in on it?" I asked, feeling a cold, different anger rise. "I think they might be tweaking the meds to kill me slowly. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that draws attention all at once, just enough for me to fade," he answered. "Your theory makes sense, but we need proof. Talking without proof turns into ammo against us," I said, keeping my voice firm so doubt wouldn't grow where it didn't belong. "What do you suggest?" he asked. No pride, just wanting a path. "We should take samples of the meds they're giving you and send them for testing somewhere out of their reach," I answered. "I know someone I trust for that." "I'll pull strings quietly and bring back the results," Spencer said, breathing a little deeper like he'd found a step up. "Don't tell anyone, especially anyone near Aaron. Scarlett's already shown us the hallway has ears," I warned, hand flat on the table. "I'll be discreet. I just want Dean to stay here. I'll go and come back," he promised, and I believed him because there was a new weight in his voice. "He'll be safe," I said without hesitation. Spencer stood slowly, worked out with me how he'd pick up what he needed, talked about the hours when his house was emptier, and how to avoid Scarlett's eyes. That night after he left, I sat in the kitchen again. The ranch's silence didn't calm me. I thought about the hallway, thought about the nurse's stare, thought about medicine going into someone's body without screaming, just turning the clock off from the inside. "Is my dad going to be okay?" Dean asked from the doorway, trying not to startle me. "He's fighting hard to make everything okay," I said, getting up and walking over to him. "I trust you," he said, simple in a way that weighed more. "Then do what I asked. Eat, rest, and call me if you hear anything. I'm right here," I answered, tucking the blanket over his shoulder. I locked everything up, pressed my forehead to the wood of the door for a second, and felt the whole house go quiet, breathing with me. The plan was set. The fear stayed, but now it had something to hold on to, and I held on. 2 days passed in that heightened state. Between working the ranch, I took food to the bedroom, checked the locks again, kept Dean close. While I was checking the cattle and keeping up with the daily routine, my eyes kept drifting back to the road at every odd sound, like I was waiting for a shadow. On the third afternoon, the phone lit up with Spencer's name. "I have the results," he said. No preamble, and I straightened up like someone had knocked on the door. "What did they say?" I asked, gripping the phone with both hands. "It's a medication that barely changes anything in the short term. But with prolonged use, it can affect the brain and kill you," he said, voice as tired as it was steady. "You're sure?" I asked, more to organize my own head than because I doubted him. "I sent it to people I trust. The report's clear. I'm furious with myself for not seeing it sooner," he replied. "What are you going to do now?" I asked, trying to keep the urgency out of my voice. "I'm going to confront Malcolm and Scarlett, and I'll record a confession. But I don't want you or Dean anywhere near it. I won't drag you into this part," he said, firmly setting the boundary. "I agree. Just promise me you won't go alone," I answered, even though the urge to go with him burned in my gut. "I know what I'm doing. When it's done, I'll drive to the ranch and tell you," he said. I hung up and looked at Dean, sitting at the edge of the table. "What did my dad say?" he asked, breathless. "That the medication is dangerous with long-term use, that he's going to talk to the doctor and the nurse and record it, and that we're not getting involved in that part," I replied clear, because he deserved clarity. "I want to help," he said, with the urgency you recognize in the skin of someone who's been thrown away. "You already helped when you knocked on my gate. Now we wait for your dad to come back," I said, pulling my chair closer to his. Toward evening, the intercom buzzed and one of the guards announced Spencer had arrived. I went out on the porch and saw him step out of the car, pale but with his jaw set like a mark. "And?" I asked, opening the door before any formalities. "Malcolm denied everything, said I made it up, that I was confused," he said, walking in without ceremony. "And Scarlett?" I asked, the name sliding off my tongue. Scarlett cracked under pressure. "She laid out the plan the way I imagined it, and the way I told you," he answered, lowering his voice like the hallway had the same ears as before. "You recorded it?" I asked. He pulled a small device from his pocket and set it on the table. "I did. She says she followed the doctor's instructions and that Aaron kept the pressure on," he said. "Did you fire them both on the spot?" I asked. "Immediately. And I know Kylie and Aaron will retaliate. They don't just accept a no," he said again. "Then we can't let this fall into their hands," I said, nodding at the device. Spencer agreed, said his goodbyes to me and his son, and left soon after. But the noise came early. The next morning before breakfast, 2 police cruisers pulled up at my gate along with Kylie's car and Aaron's. "I'm going out there. Stay at my side," I said to the guard already in the yard. "Don't move!" a cop shouted from the gate. Both cruisers opened their doors at the same time. Kylie stepped out like she was stepping onto a red carpet. Aaron followed with that owner of everything swagger. "What's going on?" I asked, and my voice came out firm by pure instinct. "You're under arrest for kidnapping. The boy will be taken," the cop said, raising a document. What? He knocked on my gate asking for help, I shot back, not hiding my outrage. Orders are orders. Open the gate, the cop said, barely looking at my face. They made this up, I said to him, jerking my chin at the couple staring at me calmly. Open the gate, he repeated, and I heard in his tone that those people weren't there to listen. Spencer's guards moved closer to me. There's nothing we can do. We can't go head-to-head with the police, one murmured at my side. I want to see the boy. Bring him now, Kylie said, crossing the line with her eyes on the metal bars. Ma'am, turn around, another cop said, cuffing me with a careful roughness, like he was saying he wasn't angry, just playing his part. Take the boy, the cop ordered, and Spencer's guards stepped back because they couldn't do anything. I saw one of them bite his lip, helpless. Aaron yanked open the car door with controlled haste. Let's go, kid. Your mom missed you, he said, fake calm. You're not my dad, and I don't want to go, Dean answered, steady in the way only someone thrown into darkness can be. Move it, Kylie cut in, not looking at anyone but the boy. They sat me in the back of the cruiser with the two guards. This is a setup, I told the cop in front, almost under my breath. That'll be decided at the station, he shot back, and they didn't even turn the siren on. They didn't need to. They had what they wanted. Me in cuffs, and the boy surrendered. Hours later at the station, I was in a cold room with a table that scraped at your fingertips. I kept staring at the door, like I could talk it into opening. Then it did, and Spencer walked in with a man beside him. I'm the attorney Spencer recommended. We'll get you released, the man said, introducing himself straight, no wasted words. I heard about the setup. I wasn't going to leave you alone. I also tracked down a political rival of Aaron's who's a prosecutor. He can safeguard the evidence, Spencer said, no fluff. Will the prosecutor take it? I asked, because I'd seen people back off when Aaron's name entered a room. He will. He's not an ally of Aaron's. Quite the opposite, Spencer said. The attorney opened his briefcase and got to work with the officers on duty, filed what needed filing, pushed back on the ones in charge until he got a deal. When he finally returned, he said he'd secured my release pending the investigation. I signed what I needed to sign, gathered my things, and felt a raw relief at realizing I was free. For now. Then we went straight to meet the prosecutor. Spencer had already set it up for that evening. By the time we got there, night had fallen, and we were shown into a room that smelled like paper. Tell me everything from the start. Don't leave out a single detail, the prosecutor said, making it clear in his first sentence that he didn't owe anyone favors. I introduced myself and told him everything from the beginning, how I'd found the boy at my gate and what he'd told me about his mom and stepdad abandoning him on the road. Then Spencer introduced himself and explained he was the boy's father, that he was ill, that he'd had custody until everything went off the rails. He laid out his suspicions about the doctor and the nurse in charge of his treatment and showed the lab report proving the use of a medication capable of killing him slowly. I want to see all the evidence, he said, holding out his hand. Spencer set the lab report on the table. Then he took the recorder out of his pocket. This has Scarlett describing the plan, Spencer said. The audio is clear, the prosecutor said after playing a few sections. What can we do tonight? I asked, and my voice came out lower than I wanted. I'm calling my team right now. We're going to put protection measures in place, issue search warrants, and split up into teams, the prosecutor said, already reaching for his phone. What teams? I asked, because I needed to picture people moving on our side. One to recover Dean with CPS and a tactical unit, another to seize medications and medical records, a third to interview Christopher with a specialist present. I won't let anyone say we coerced him, he said, ticking them off on his fingers. Am I going with them? I asked, half on impulse, half wanting to hold the rope to the end. No, You're staying here. You did what you had to do. Now, this is my job, the prosecutor said. Blunt, and I appreciated the firmness. If anything happens, please let me know, I asked, respectful. The small hours crawled. I sat there, Spencer beside me with his hand on his knee, the attorney firing off messages, brow knotted. Then the prosecutor's phone rang. He answered, listened, didn't speak for several seconds. Then he nodded at me once. Dean's been located. He's under CPS protection, he said. I closed my eyes and breathed like I hadn't since the night at the gate. Thank you, I said, my voice breaking on the way out. It's not over, but it's moving in the right direction, the prosecutor cautioned, putting his phone away. Days turned into weeks of statements and forensic work. They called me in more than once. I repeated the same sentences with the same words, so nobody could claim later I'd made anything up. Dean was interviewed carefully with professionals at his side. The prosecutor kept us informed without promising anything he couldn't deliver. One morning, I walked into his office and saw the table covered in folders. The investigation confirmed it. Scarlett and Malcolm altered doses for money. Aaron and Kylie planned Dean's disappearance to keep Christopher as the sole heir under their control, he said. No suspense, no frills. You're sure this is airtight? I asked, because I'd learned not to celebrate before the whistle. I am. We have physical evidence, witness statements, crossed links. Now come the arrests, he said. The arrests came with less noise than I expected. Scarlett was charged with attempted murder, Malcolm with the same. Aaron and Kylie with kidnapping, coercion and corruption. Beyond them, a lot of people tied to Aaron fell too. Cops suspended, aides investigated, public employees arrested or removed from office. I heard the news standing in my kitchen, hand on the counter, heart trying to keep up with the information. Spencer's treatment continued with an independent team the prosecutor had lined up, outside anyone else's reach. I saw a little color return to his face when they adjusted his meds. How's Christopher? I asked the prosecutor when I got a minute alone with him. He's getting support and he's with his brother. Together, safe, far from the people who take advantage, he answered. Back at the ranch, I went straight to the kitchen. I placed a copy of the lab report and the audio file on the highest shelf, like you do with something that can't be lost. Dean appeared in the doorway and watched quietly, his eyes calmer now, without the fear from before. I closed the cabinet, looked at him, and finally felt like everything was where it should be. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, give it a like, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. See you in the next story.